गुड इवनिंग फ्रेंड्स। मैं नीता भोजवानी ज्ञान भारत में आप सभी लोगों का हार्दिक स्वागत करती हूँ। आज ज्ञान भारत के लिए बहुत ही खुशी का दिन है क्योंकि हमारे बीच में बहुत ही प्यारी ऑथर, बहुत ही प्यारी सोल आ रही हैं, डीना मरियम, जिन्होंने बहुत सारी बुक्स लिखी, जिनकी सबसे ज्यादा लोकप्रिय बुक अनटोल्ड स्टोरी ऑफ सीता है। उनका हिंदी में भी ट्रांसलेशन हो चुका है। कविता गुप्ता जी, जिन्होंने कल सेशन लिया था, उन्होंने सीतायन के रूप में उसका ट्रांसलेशन किया है। डीना मरियम की काफी बुक्स को हम लोगों ने ज्ञान भारत में शेयर किया और हर बुक को सभी आप सभी लोगों ने बहुत सराहा। मुझे भी बहुत अच्छा लगता है उनकी बुक्स के बारे में सुनना। उनकी इतनी पास्ट लाइफ शायद इसीलिए हुई है, मतलब त्रेता युग में या द्वापर युग में, जिसके द्वारा वो हमको वहां का ज्ञान यहाँ 20th सेंचुरी में भी लाके दे सके। अभी उनकी न्यू बुक आ रही है रुक्मणी, और शायद रिलीज हो गई है और अभी तक के इंडिया में नहीं पहुंची है, तो जैसे ही आएंगी हम सभी लोगों को इन्फॉर्म कर देंगे। पर आज रुक्मणी बुक के बारे में भी हम बहुत सारी उनसे जानकारी लेंगे और उनकी जो पूरी स्पिरिचुअल जर्नी है अभी की, उसके बारे में भी हम सब विजडम लेंगे। काफी क्वेश्चंस हम लोगों ने सिलेक्ट करके रखे हैं, पर यदि टाइम मिला तो हम आप लोगों को भी मौका देंगे ताकि आप लोग भी क्वेश्चन पूछ सके। बस आप लोगों से विनती है कि क्वेश्चन आप थोड़ा शॉर्ट में पूछिएगा, नहीं तो टाइम बहुत चला जाता है। और आज का जो सेशन है उसका ट्रांसलेशन हिंदी में संडे के दिन करवाएंगे, क्योंकि कल हम आशा गुप्ता जी को टाइम दे चुके हैं, जिनका टॉपिक है कंस्ट्रक्टिंग योर पिरामिड। बहुत ही प्यारा टॉपिक है, उनका रह गया था, तो आशा गुप्ता जी कल सेशन लेंगी। तो आप लोग कल का सेशन एंजॉय करिए और जानिए कि पिरामिड कैसे हम अपने घर में या अपने आसपास बनवा सकते हैं। इसका ट्रांसलेशन संडे को आप लोगों को मिल जाएगा। तो चलिए फ्रेंड्स, 5 बजे दीना जी हमारे साथ जुड़ेंगी। उसके पहले हम मेडिटेशन कर लें। तो आज 50 मिनट्स का हम मेडिटेशन करेंगे। तो आप सभी लोग ध्यान के लिए तैयार हो जाएं। जब हम ग्रुप मेडिटेशन करते हैं तो हमें काफी एनर्जी मिलती है, और अब जब लंबा समय का ध्यान करते हैं तो कहीं प्यास न लगे और आपके ध्यान में व्यवधान न आए, उसके लिए बेहतर है कि आप पहले थोड़ा सा पानी पी लीजिए। कमरे की रोशनी को मध्यम कर लें। सुखासन में बैठ जाएं। दोनों हाथों की उंगलियों को आपस में फंसा लें। पैरों को भी क्रॉस कर लें। आंखों को आहिस्ता से बंद कर अपनी आती और जाती श्वास के साथ एक हो जाए। ये 50 मिनट आप और आपकी श्वास विचार आएंगे, विचार जाएंगे, पर आपका ध्यान आपकी आती और जाती सरल और स्वाभाविक सांसों पर बना रहे। पूरा ध्यान अपनी सांस पर। 1 minute. Last 10 seconds. Three, two, one, जीरो। अपनी दोनों हाथों की हथेलियों को खोलकर अपनी आंखों के ऊपर ले जाएंगे। 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0। हथेलियों को खोलते हुए एक प्यारी सी मुस्कान के साथ धीरे धीरे अपनी आंखों को खोलकर ध्यान से बाहर आ जाएंगे। थैंक यू फ्रेंड्स। आशा करती हूँ कि बहुत अच्छा ध्यान लगा होगा। थैंक यू फ्रेंड्स। हमारे बीच में बहुत ही प्यारी, ब्यूटीफुल और बहुत ही प्योर सोल दीना जी जुड़ गई हैं, जिन्होंने अनटोल्ड स्टोरी ऑफ सीता और भी कई बुक्स लिखी हैं, जिनके बारे में हम सभी लोगों ने स्वाध्याय किया है। तो आज का सेशन बहुत ही स्पेशल है। नवरात्रि चल रही है। हम पिछले 3 दिन से माँ सीता के साथ ही जुड़े हुए हैं। तो चलिए फ्रेंड्स, उनका वेलकम करते हैं। वेलकम 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 दीना मैम, वेलकम।
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Wonderful to see you all.
Welcome. After reading your book, Untold Story of Sita, my perception towards Ma Sita totally changed, ma'am. Because from my childhood, I couldn't accept her role as Ramayana always described. And thank you for sharing her wisdom and enlightening us. Thank you, ma'am. And welcome to Gyaan Bharat.
Well, I had the same experience that you had. I read Valmiki's Ramayana in my early 20s, and it actually helped me attune myself to Ram and Sita, and I recognized that they were my Ishta Devas, really. But I rejected the telling of the tale, especially the last part. But there were many things where I felt that Sita was not properly positioned as the full partner of Ram, and that she had taken birth for that reason, that he needed her to take birth to accomplish what he accomplished, which was setting the foundation for a new civilization. And so, but I just pushed it aside until I had this experience where, as I describe in the book, I went to Ayodhya. I went to, at a much later time in my life, where I was already having many visions of past births. So that channel was already open. And then I went to Vaishno Devi and had that full series of recollections.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, Pooja ji.
Namaste, Dena. Namaste, Gyaan Bharat. So, Dena, very, very welcome to Gyaan Bharat Group. We are deeply honored to have you here with us today. And we are so, so, so grateful for the spiritual insights and the learnings your books have given to us. As a group, we have shared all of your books so far, except the Rukmini, which we haven't reached that stage yet. But before we actually start the session, I would quickly pass it on to Neetaji and Mahi. Or Neetaji, would you like to? So Neetaji is the founder of this platform, this virtual platform, and she and Mahi, they both work tirelessly for this group. So it's pretty much pulling people out of their routine and reminding them of the benefits of meditation. Mostly with love, but sometimes they can be strict as well, and they can tell you, let you know in each and every way that how much meditation benefits us all. So before I come back again to talk to you, Dena, I'll quickly pass it on to both Neetaji and Mahi. Thank you, Neetaji. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Mahi.
Hello, ma'am. Good evening. Ma'am, I'm really a big fan of your work and dedicating yourself to the humanity, to the work of humanity or universe is itself, I think, the most humble deed that you've been doing. The wisdom shared in your books have played an important role in making the souls aware about the real truth behind the most ancient literature of India. It makes a lot more special because you have mostly worked on all the spiritual literature of India. About Gyaan Bharat and team, feel privileged to have you here on this platform. So just something about Gyaan Bharat. Gyaan Bharat is a non-profit virtual platform focused on the mission of spreading meditation and soul science awareness. And we've been running this platform since 2 years and have been conducting wisdom sharing sessions and meditation sessions every single day. And we have, as Pooja has already mentioned, that we have already discussed a lot of books, starting with, to name just a few, The Bright Moon Rises, My Journey Through the Story of Sita. So welcome, 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 ma'am, to Gyan Bharat. Thank you.
Yes, Pooja.
Is Kavitaji with us, Neetaji, right now?
Kavita hasn't joined.
Hasn't joined. Okay, no worries. So Dena, we will, I don't know where to start from. Like your books have been like so enriching with the knowledge, but then still because we were having the privilege to have you over here, we thought that we will frame, some of the things we would like to share, some of the would like to have some of the wisdom. So we have framed some questions on behalf of the group. So first we'll go through those questions and then we'll open it to the audience if they want to talk to you, express their gratitude and everything. So Citan has touched many people, and one reason has been obviously it's been translated in not only Hindi but in many regional languages as well. So that's where I think most of the people connect to you. But on top of that, we tried to share all the books as well, like the way you have put 4 chapters to one of your past past life, and we have tried to take out all the highlights of that particular birth, share with people, share the learnings and everything. So that's how people can connect. Today we are having this session in English, but then tomorrow we'll be translating it to Hindi as well, so that more people can listen to what you shared with us today. So so in your book there is a very a very intrigued presence of Paramhansa Yogananda. So it's our tradition, Dena, to start with gratitude to the Guru. Many of us actually have been, because if we have been on this meditation path, and once you are on the serious meditation path, somehow the autobiography of a yogi will find you. I don't know how, it's a phenomena, but it does find you, and that changes your life. And that's the story of many people. So Autobiography of a Yogi is very popular in India as well. It's there in Hindi, very, very well translated in Hindi. So can you talk to us about Paramhansa Yogananda? And since you have got this relationship now for, like, I don't know, since Mahabharat Kal, or maybe even, I don't know, even before. So how did you receive his teachings in this life? What role has he played to Dena?
Dena. Okay, I'll be the persona of Dena now. As you'll, when you read the story, the book on Rukmini, you'll see that there was a much earlier connection that was made. And in my journey through time, I refer to another life with him. And in this life, it was an immediate recognition. I was searching spiritually in my teens, and I went off to college at 19. And someone handed me Autobiography of a Yogi. I think I was in my freshman year of college, possibly early sophomore year. As soon as I saw his picture, I recognized him. And this was really when meditation was just beginning to come to the US. I mean, Yogananda brought meditation here in the 1920s. But in terms of it becoming sort of a larger movement, it was the late 60s and early 70s. And so I found his book. It was a long time ago, 1970, I think it was, 1969 maybe. And I wanted to learn to meditate right away. So I wrote to the organization. He had left the body. I had a lot of friends who were going off to India to find their gurus, but I couldn't go. I was in college, and his teaching was here. So I wrote, and I wanted to get Kriya Yoga. And so I went through the whole process. But I was much more of an Indian soul. I was wanting to read. I mean, the Gita was my main text at the time, and then I read Valmiki's Ramayana and recognized myself as a devotee as Ram and Sita. And so I didn't really understand what Yogananda's mission was, which was to show the convergence of the teachings of Christ and Krishna. So I was like from the Hindu part of the family. And so I was unable to get deeply involved in the organization, although I had great respect and admiration for what they're doing, which is sticking very strictly just to the teachings of Kriya Yoga and the teachings of Yogananda. But I sort of gravitated more toward Indian culture and in kirtans and my own study of the Upanishads and the texts. And I had a lot of things to deal with in my life, but I was and I tell this to young people, I was a regular meditator since the time of 20. And there is nothing more valuable in life than starting early and taking it very seriously and regularly. I know many people in the youth sporadically meditate, but it's like if you sporadically save money, if you put $100 in once a year, you're not going to have a big savings. If you put $100 in every day, suddenly you have a big savings. And so regular meditation, even when you feel nothing has happened, was the message I got. Because for Yogananda, whatever problem you had, he said, meditate. And when devotees would go to him for answers, what should I do in my life? What should I do? Get divorced, not get divorced, take this job, not, he would say, meditate. He rarely would tell them what to do. He would say, meditate. And maybe not the first try, but eventually the answers come to you through this inward turning. So that was a message that affected me very deeply. Of course, then life hits you with lots of traumas. I had to go through a divorce, and as a single mother supporting my 2 kids. And it was at that point when past life memories were beginning to awaken in me. And it was just, I think I described this in my journey through time. It was destabilizing at first because I was fully reliving my past birth at the same time as holding on to a job and raising my 2 teenage sons, and trying to keep my meditation going. And so I clung to meditation at that time to make sure that I wasn't falling off a cliff. And gradually, the whole sequence of my past birth came to me, and I saw that I had met Yogananda. He took one trip from America back to India, 35, 36, and passed through Germany, where I was a refugee at that time, just before the war. And we had just a soul connection. I didn't understand English. He was doing a private little talk at someone's home, and there was an immediate connection. And then he moved. He went on to India. I died soon after. But then I remembered the in-between state before I took birth as Dena, and him calling me into birth. And that is why I think I recognized him so early. As soon as I was coming into mature awareness as a young 19, 20-year-old. And so because I recognized my relationship with him, and that, in fact, I feel that he was the one sent to me by Ram, Krishna, Mata, Rukmini. They're all to me as one. And he was the one sent to me as the personal guru, the one who can lead me step by step. And, of course, I've had many other wonderful relationships. And you'll see in my stories, there has always been somebody to bring me back onto the path during a difficult life struggle. And I believe we all have that. I think we all have our guides, seen and unseen. Sometimes we don't recognize them. It could be just a chance meeting where someone gives you words of wisdom and they sink in and you change course. Often we don't recognize these guides who appear to us. But I think, there are many, many teachings for me personally, as I've gone through this process of writing all these books. The Rukmini book has been held up a little bit because of paper shortage in the US. I'm hoping it will be resolved in the next few months. And I've just finished another book, which I'm editing now, which continues the story. And so I say to myself, the story never ends. Until we are fully liberated and are in that one consciousness, there'll be more stories. But I never know what comes next. I never know what's going to pop open for me. And so I'm in a state of trying to be as attentive and alert as possible to see what the direction is that I'm receiving.
Beautiful. So it's basically what I'm hearing is you are not the doer now, you are the non-doer, but you are just giving a lot of attention to what's coming your way and fully open to get the messages. Fair enough. Cool. Very, very nice, Dena. So let's talk about Sitayan at first, is just because majority of our audience just connects very, very deeply with Sitayan. It's a saga in itself. The book has got very high energy. It speaks the truth for itself. So, like in India, we have been just, as Neetaji mentioned, it's just Mata Sita had a very, very different story that was presented, or that was understood, I would say, over many, many years. But then in your book, obviously, there are heroes, Lord Ram and Mata Sita, and there are many other characters like Lakshmana. They're all ideals in their own way. But one thing that's very touching is Soma. So I read Sitayan once, and then twice, and then thrice, and then I was thinking, who is Soma? Who is Soma, Dena? Can you tell us more?
Soma is totally one with Sita. She has no will of her own apart from serving Sita. She was the model for everyone around at that time because she was so attuned with Sita. So even when Sita was away on that journey, Soma was attuned with her and could see what was happening. Soma, as I understand it, was a celestial attendant who incarnated with her to provide that service. And she was the one who had the closest contact with Sita because she was able to contain that energy, the high energy. So, See, so these, I can't say that I fully understand all the things that I write about. I can only convey the understanding that I have. And I know that Soma was as close to Sita as one can get. So often when Sita was not available, or one didn't have the attunement because of the state of consciousness one had, Soma would be that intermediary, and she would be able to convey to you. She was the one who saw Sita for who she was. And so, for example, when she once sent him Nakshi, don't you see how the flowers grow and Sita walks by? Well, that was something that everybody missed, but Soma saw it, how nature responded to Sita, because nature didn't have this logical mind that was filtering through. They were just responding to Sita's love energy, which was very powerful. And so so all kinds of things would happen around Sita that others just might not notice because they didn't have the perception. So she was the translator in many ways of who Sita was. And you know, as a servant, Meenakshi didn't have she was still at an earlier age in her development. And so all she could feel was Sita's overpowering love, because that's what everyone felt. The understanding of who Sita was beyond her. And so I've not been able to find Soma in any of my other incarnations. Maybe she did not incarnate again. Maybe that was the one time. Maybe she was around Rukmini and I just haven't seen it. The Rukmini book continues some of the stories in the Sita book, because the stories continue. They don't end, you know, until they find their resolution. For example, there was toward the end of the book, there was a young woman on her way to receive the Guru's blessings when she's assaulted and raped, and Sita heals her. That story continues and it completes itself in the Rukmini book. So when Sita intervenes to assist people, when a lot of them take birth again around Rukmini, because she draws those souls to her. So many souls from Mithila took birth in Vidarbha and Dwarka because they were drawn by her energy, and Sita helps them. What I came to see, all these writings, is we see Ram and Sita on a grand scale, what they did, but how do they interact with the personal lives of those they helped day to day? I mean, they had many personal interactions, Sita in Mithila, and then Ayodhya, and then in the long travel, in Lanka. And then, you know, afterwards, many thousands of people that she interacted with. And in each one received something. And those were permanent impressions and relationships were formed. Well, she doesn't abandon them. And she continues to guide them from the unseen plane. And then when she takes birth again, they are drawn to her, and many of their stories are advanced or completed. And so one of the major learnings for me is that previously I had regarded Sita as an historical figure and as an ideal, incarnation of Narayani, but not as an active presence in my life. After the writing of that book, she became a living presence for me. So not a day goes by where I'm not conscious of Sita's presence in my life. And that's the one thing I really hoped people would take away from this book, that they would come into a personal, because it's a very intimate relationship. It's not abstract, it's not distant, it's a very personal relationship. When we realize that when the Mahadevis and Devas take human birth, they assume a personal relationship with their devotees, and that relationship doesn't end. It's an ongoing one, and all kinds of assistance can be given during difficult times. All kinds of assistance. I mean, most often we block it out because it's like we're so focused on the here and now that we block out or cut off access from the higher realms. And so we're not cognizant of all the help that's being given. And so our job is to open up to that and to receive it and to be conscious of the presence these great ones in our lives.
Indeed. It makes me think, Dena, that this concept that we keep hearing in many forms, we call it sometimes Shiva and Shakti. We sometimes call it, the divine energy, like in the form of nature. So not only nature around us, but even the material objects around us, everything has got energy. And I guess it's up to us to open up, to perceive, to start perceiving, to understand, to increase this wisdom of heart, and feel this nature or divinity or Sita or Rukmini around us.
It's absolutely true. I mean, I think the first thing is to feel the energy in the life force in the animals and plants and the trees. The earth itself, the earth has very healing vibrations. So just working with the earth is to me is a sadhana. And I think it should be incorporated into everyone's sadhana in some form, growing plants and just connecting with the earth energy. But beyond that, there's the mountains, the rocks, the stones, the ether, the air, the stars, the moon. I have a special relationship with the moon from when the bright moon rises, you can see, and continues on in this next book that I'm just finishing up. Everything that is created out of that consciousness. And so we can access that consciousness through any point. And once you open up to it all, we live in a much vaster universe. It's like we put glasses on just to see close up and don't see the bigger picture. And so we have to take the glasses off and begin relating to everything. And I've always had a very special relationship with stones and crystals and rocks and shells. And I'm always picking them up and collecting them and bringing them home. And I now have gone back and see where that has come from. But stones give it what does Yogananda says? He says, the divine energy is sleeping in stones, dreaming in plants, awake in animals, and in humans knows that it's awake. So it's just different degrees of waking up, but they transmit vibrations that we need. And so the more we divorce ourselves from these points of access, the more we're going to feel alone and separated. And we want to counter that feeling of separateness, because that's an illusion.
Yes, very, very nice. Very, very nice. Dena, since we just spoke about Sita, and I think Kavita ji has just joined us. So Kavita Gupta ji, you know her. She's the one who has done the humble deed of translating the book in Hindi. And her translation, I have read the book in English. I haven't read the Hindi version. But my mother, she is a master's in Sanskrit. And she read her book and she said that, like, she obviously hasn't read the English, but she said that this book is very, very deep, very, very touching. So Kavita ji, since you're here, and before we move on to the next questions, would you please unmute yourself and would like to talk to Dena?
Yes.
Hi, Kavita ji.
Yes, hi ma'am. Hello, how are you? Namaste. Nice seeing you. Yeah, good to see you after a long time.
Good to see you again. Yeah. And thank you for that translation. Unfortunately I don't read Hindi, but thank you for that.
Ma'am, one thing I would like to ask you in this platform, because many people ask me one thing: is channeling really possible through meditation? One thing. And again, can you time travel as and when you want to whichever era you want? Like, is it again a power of meditation? As and when you want, you can go to that particular time and visit and meet and talk, communicate with whomsoever you want to. Is it possible?
Yes, it's possible. I mean, I never consider my work to be channeling, but I don't know. I mean, I am always cautious about using that term because there's so many people claiming to do it, and one has to just sort of feel out whether the messages coming through feel true. When I wrote the Sita book, I see the world very much in terms of the yugas, the cycling of time. My whole perception of history is framed by the yugas. And I'm trying to introduce that concept, more than introduce it, to really embed it in the Western thinking, just like I'm trying to embed this thought of this understanding of karma and rebirth, to make it mainstream here in the West, because you can't just look at history as linear. It doesn't work. And so when I was writing the Sita book, I traveled back in time. For 2 years, I lived in 2 time zones, my current one and the Treta Yuga. And so I was able to see what life was like in the Treta Yuga. And I felt that the story that came to us of Ram and Sita, it was an oral story for a very long time, and then it got written down. But things didn't get written down. It's the same thing with the Vedas, which I tried to show in Right Moon Rises. By the time they got written down, it was a different era. The Treta Yuga had passed. In the Treta Yuga, you did not need writing. It was a higher Yuga. Everything could be retained by the mind, by the memory. Writing was unnecessary. It wasn't that they were too primitive to have writing. They didn't need it. It was unnecessary. When the mind began to lose the capacity to have these direct perceptions and to hold them, they had to find a way to record so they wouldn't be lost. So writing came into being. But, in a linear view of history, it's an advance. It's actually a decline, a mental decline. But okay, writing is a wonderful thing. We're grateful for it because now we retain even less. All we have is tweets. We everything keeps getting reduced. So yes, I was able to travel back and get, and the same thing happened in writing the Rukmini book. When it was the end of one era and the beginning of another. But there were many, we tend to think, okay, the Kali Yuga, such a time of destruction. Yes, it was a time of increased warfare. During Ram and Sita's time, there wasn't enslavement, there wasn't oppression, there wasn't the degrading of nature. So we move into a time where there's much more rapid development of human civilization, of control of nature, of control, capturing other people, frequent wars, enslavement, all those things. But there was also the flourishing of the arts. And one of the roles that Rukmini performed was to facilitate and promote this flourishing of the arts so that humans would have some way of remaining connected to the divine during this time of reduced spiritual perception. So yes, and now I'm writing a book. It's called Dancing with Dakinis, about 12th century Tibet and 13th century India, when so much destruction took place in India, and there are many stories about Shiva in there, and how the sages were preserving the knowledge during this time of transformation and destruction. Time travel is definitely possible, but not as you would think. It's not like you take your physical body and take your physical body into another era. It's where you open the window to that era so you can experience what life was like there. So you can have an experience of what it was like to live in that era.
Beautiful question, Kavita
That's
ji.
so informative. Yeah, it's highly informative, yes. And that too for the Dhyani community, for our spiritual community. Where people are meditating seriously, there are serious meditators. And those who are really experiencing ascension, doing swadhyaya, reading books, that's also part of our, one of the major principles which is being taught to the people, that other than meditation, you need to be mindful, you need to read books, that's most important. So we all are following it, and congratulations for your new book, Rukmini. So yesterday Pooja was sharing her experience. She was saying that she's already read the book. So definitely we'll also read the book.
You finished the book?
Yeah, she's
Yes,
already
I
read
finished the book. Yes. So that has been my full-time job, Dena. After my work, I just picked the book. I just do the minimum house stuff. And even my boys, I've got 2 boys that know that till the time mom's not finishing the book, nothing's going to happen in our home. So yes, I have read the book once. Beautiful, beautiful book.
It was very hard for me to finish that, to pull myself out of that book. I just wanted to live there. but over the course of these writings, we just talked about visiting another time period. which definitely happens, but it happens to me spontaneously. It's something I strive for. It happens spontaneously in meditation. I mean, I now have to keep a pad and pencil. I've been doing this for some time by my meditation chair, which I question myself for doing it, but things come to me and I don't want to lose them. But travel into other dimensions has become a preoccupation of mine. And, I've talked about it in the various books, and When the Bright Moon Rises, even in my first book, My Journey Through Time, where I recount between my last birth and this birth. And I don't know what to call it, because I don't like to call it between lives. Now I just call it home, because which is our home? Which is our home? We have to move beyond being attached to this brief manifestation as being our identity. It's one identity among many, and I say to myself, I'm not Meenakshi, I'm not Sujata in that book, or even, so many different names and forms. I write about this in the poem in My Journey Through Time. I'm all of them and none of them. I've moved beyond all of the personalities. I've even moved beyond Dena now. In a short time, Dena will just be one of the many, So the whole journey is about who am I? That comes out more in the book I'm currently writing, when the first question emerges of one's true identity, of who we are. And that's the question that leads one along the path of meditation, leading one deeper and deeper into a knowledge of one's true identity.
So thanks, Dena. Now that you have mentioned Journey Through Times, it's a beautiful segue to my next question. So just last 3 days actually, we've been talking about all the characters in that book. So we started from Sonia, we went to Elizabeth, we went to Tema, we went to Geeta, like everyone, Meera. So you have, like the way you have written, and every single time you have described the time you were leaving that particular body. So you've kind of seen and felt what we call death so many times. So how do you view death now? Like, what is it? What's your message to all of us, since death is considered probably the root of all the fears? Like, we've got so many problems in our life. The root cause is fear, and probably the biggest fear that we face as humans is the fear of death. How do you view dying or death?
I can talk about it personally and collectively. Collectively, it's the next frontier. I think scientists will discover that consciousness survives the material. Current science, it's the material gives rise to consciousness. Evolution, material gave rise, but it's the opposite. Consciousness gave rise to material manifestation. And that's part of the discovery as we journey deeper inside to who we are. So I think that there'll be advances, also dimensions. What we used to call the celestial realms, now scientists refer to other dimensions, which our senses can't perceive. My Guruji used to say that the astral world, the astral and then the subtle causal world, the astral world is larger than the physical universe. And it's here. It's like a big balloon held in the same over the physical universe, but our senses are not designed to perceive it. Our eyes are very limited in what they can see. Our ears are very limited in what we can see. And I had an experience recently, which was it wasn't a time travel, it was a travel to another dimension, where 6 months ago, my father, at the age of 100, very quietly and peacefully left his body. And we were expecting it. It was no surprise. He'd been declining. But I was determined to find him. I thought, I'm going to find him. So I began writing poems to him. Where are you? Why can't I find you? And it took about 2 or 3 weeks. And then I was sitting in meditation one morning, and I distinctly heard him call my name. And I saw him as his younger self, a man in his 40s. And I was able to go to where he was and be present with him in this other place where he was. And it was a place of learning. My father was a lifelong learner, an artist and a learner, a businessman, very successful, but had some resistance to Eastern spirituality. but a questioning mind. And so he was in a place, it was like a library, only open to the air, and he was in a learning environment. And I was able to stay with him for a while. And then a few months later, I said something to my older sister, or spontaneously said to me that she heard him call her name. And I said, me too. And I said, and I saw him. And she said, I saw him. And that was the end for her. I mean, she didn't have any more experiences, but periodically I check in to my father. And then a few months ago, my daughter-in-law lost her sister, 42-year-old sister, to ovarian cancer. It was a very, very painful event for her. I didn't know this sister well. My daughter-in-law is Korean. This woman lived in Korea. And I said, well, I don't know if I can find her because I didn't have that soul connection with her. I know I met her. 2 weeks, 3 weeks after her passing, I did find her waking up in another place. And I'm able to observe her. So I said to myself, because I have something of a scientific mind where I look at these things and say, okay, it took a few weeks, but that's just a few hours in celestial time, because a year here is a day there. So, is that how it is? It takes a few hours to wake up because you're processing your life. And then you have to realize you have to come to terms with the fact that you're not in the body. Now, my mother is at the end of her life, which is one of the reasons I didn't know I could be here today. She's in her last days now. She had wanted to, she's 96, wanted to go with my father as soon as he left. She just says, I want to go home. I want to go home. But I knew he needed time apart. That was very clear to me that he needed time apart. It's been 6 months now. And I just felt that it's okay now for her to leave. We've been struggling. I said to myself at one point, is my job to keep my parents separate, to keep my mother here so he can do what he needs to do? But now it's her time to leave. So I'm trying to help her with the transition because she's still hanging on. So death, for me, another thing that happened in writing the Rukmini book, you've heard me talk about Satya. Satya shows up in the first book. In the Rukmini book, I found my relationship with Satya on earth, which was a very powerful one. And I found that my relationship with him goes all the way back to the time of Sita. And it was Sita who, what I tried to show, even in the Sita book, was that Ram and Sita were active in people's lives. Ram was visiting homes, helping people to decide, yes, you take this job in the forestry, and why doesn't your daughter and the son get together? Active presence in people's lives, not this high king who deals just with government policy. A model for all leaders to be a guide and a father to the community. I mean, that model we've fallen so far from that model, but hopefully it lies in our future. So Satya was somebody who I had a physical incarnation with. And since I've been writing, he's been an active presence for me. And so death to me is a reunion. And I write about it more in the current book that I'm just finishing, where I have several episodes of the home state between Earth incarnations. I'm trying to see more of what I can't see as much as I would like to. And it's different for everybody. Everybody has a different experience of what that home state is like. Sometimes you go to the same place, sometimes you go to different places. So many factors affect what happens to you when you leave the body. And that's why our spiritual efforts are so important now, because the more spiritual efforts we make, the more we attune ourselves with a higher energy, the more we're automatically going to be drawn into those higher places. And I mean, I know that I've already seen a future incarnation for myself. My goal is that in a return, it's for pure service. It's not for any personal desires or needs. Some of us need to come back because the earth needs a lot of work. The earth community needs a lot of work. So those of us who are able to come back more consciously, I hope we choose to do it. I don't know whether I have my memories in my next return. Not in many lives I did not. And it's not that important, because after your life, your memories, after you're finished here, you then recall many things. So I think we have to open up ourselves to other dimensions, knowing that we are multidimensional beings. Sometimes when I'm here, I'm there as well. I'm with Satya, I'm with my earthly father, I want to be a presence and a guide for him, for his future. But one has to be careful not to make too many cement too many things that draw you back into the earth. In other words, to come back to serve is different from coming back to fulfill unfulfilled desires. And so these are all the things that I'm thinking about now as I continue writing. Does that answer my relationship with?
Yes. It does answer. It does answer the question. But then, while you were talking, I was thinking that there are many other things that we can now talk about. So, so when you spoke about your father, that the first thing that came to my mind is from Autobiography of a Yogi, the way Paramahansa Yogananda was trying to find a student Kashi.
Yeah.
So one student, he left him, and that's how he described in detail that how the third eye is playing a role there, and how he's contacting, and how he found him out in Calcutta or Banaras, I'm forgetting the city. So yes, it's quite believable, Dena, that these things are there. But one thing that I want to know is, when you say that you connect with Satya, for example, or you connect with your father, is that through thought? Is this a visualization and thought, and or is some other force that takes you there?
The only way I know how to describe it, it's a force of love. So, I didn't know techniques to try to find. I mean, my father wasn't incarnate again, so I couldn't go looking for him. But I poured out my love to him, and I wrote poems to him. I put him on my puja. I was bringing him into my meditation, and I believe that's what drew him. And I think he has a very strong relationship with me. When he called out my name, I think he was also wanting to reconnect with me. With Satya, and it's more frequent now than it was, I feel an overwhelming presence of love in my life. I mean, I'll be sitting in meditation and overcome with this love, and I know that's Satya. That we're connecting. And he's often sent very much help my way when I've needed it. And I can recognize without seeing a form. I mean, I just described at the beginning of the Sita book, I described my experience of Ram when I finished writing that book. And to me, that was very important. It was a confirmation that I wasn't imagining all of this. And I had been a devotee of Ram for many years, but I had never had the experience of Ram until I finished the Sita book. That is the opening of the Sita book. I just finished this book on Tibet and India. And as soon as I finished it, I had another very difficult day, which I describe. It's the last part of this book. I just wrote it last week, and I'm sharing something very personal, where I was struggling with my mother leaving. A dear friend of mine is having health challenges, and then a very close Gurubai brother took his life. And that was a real blow. He called me the night before, and I said, "You can't, it's not an option, but he took his life." He'd been very depressed. And I just finished my book, That night, I had a vision of Ram again, second time only in my life. But this time it wasn't his form, whereas previously it was just this overpowering love, which I recognized. You can recognize. I knew that was Ram. This time it was his form. And I thought to myself, this is no coincidence. It came when I finished the book, and it came when I was suffering from this loss of this Gurubai. And it awakened me again to the intimate nature of our relationship with the divine. That why this day? Just, and I needed that. And so I was lifted into this place of love, and so I was holding love and sorrow at the same time, but it was a very healing, because I had a taste of something that was lifted me above the human realm. And often I get an influx of that, and I know that that's satya. Often it comes in meditation, but other times as well, where I just feel his presence in my life. And I know, I mean, I'm getting older. Death is not that far away. Of course, we have the rational mind, and my mind sometimes says, you know, am I really going to see him when I leave the body? Am I really going home? Will he come to find me? Is he real? My questioning mind asks all those questions. And then I have to say, what else can I go on? What else can I go on? I mean, what I learned from Sita is the heart, is recognizing love. And that is no illusion. When you experience the intensity of that divine love, that is not an illusion. You experience it. So the rational mind is going to create all kinds of questions about death. But you have to, and that's okay, but you can't pay too much attention to it. You know, the mind is going to do what it's designed to do. You know, it wants to keep you here functioning in the human realm. It's going to do what it's designed to do. But there are other faculties, the intuitive faculty, the heart faculty, that lift you above that. And so many of my reflections now, and now I finished this book and I don't know what comes next. I would like to either write a book called Memories of a Future Life. I mean, I'm being very honest with everyone now, or about life in that sphere. What is it like on a day-to-day to live in that other dimension? It's simply another dimension that we go to when the physical elements dissolve and we are freed from the weight of matter. So what is that life like? I'm trying to see more of that, because I think that's part of helping people overcome their fear of death.
Thank you, Dena. Since we have spoken a lot about Satya now, I will just quickly remind all the viewers that Satya is Sage Kapila, who did the yagya for Sundari when we discussed the book was The Bright Moon Rises. So that's where we felt like we knew Satya. We started to know him as Kapila, but then Satya was present in all the between life chapters in pretty much all the books, I would say. So let's go to the next question. So Dena, like when we come to this, spirituality or meditation practice, we start understanding that, through this, whether we call it, the law of cause and effect, we say that we are the creators of our own destiny. But again, we are tied up with our patterns. Like, we saw those patterns in the journey through lives, how we get stuck in the patterns again and again, or we call sanskars. So breaking these patterns or breaking these tendencies, how do we do that? Are there some ways that you have figured out that you would like to share with all of us?
First of all, it takes patience. If you want to break a habit of coffee, you have to put up with maybe some headaches for a few days or weeks. If you want to lose weight, it can't just be a few weeks. You have to make lifestyle changes. If you want to break an alcohol addiction, it could take years to break addictions. So, my Guruji used to say that these patterns are grooves in the brain. Spiritual practices regroove the brain. Mantra, japa, pranayam, you're in the process of regrooving the brain, but they have to be consciously, not automatically. I do my Kriya practice, which is an energy practice with the working with chakras and the Kundalini. Half the time I do it, automatically without putting a lot of conscious thought into it. And so every meditation I say, okay, today I'm going to be much more conscientious about really being in the spine and moving my energy up, because that's regrooving the brain. The patterns that I had, of hiding my spirituality, that was with me for numerous lives, because I had last few lives in the West, and even in this life, it was a very hard thing for me to overcome. It was a challenge of a lifetime, really. But I did overcome it, and a relationship with my mother, which was very troubled because she was the main force I've now become so grateful. She was an obstruction to me. And in writing the Tibet book, I realized obstructions are there to strengthen you. And so whatever challenge you have is there to strengthen you. And so the key is persistence and intention. If you want to change a habit, it could take you a lifetime. But if you don't do it now, you'll do it in the future. So it's worth putting the effort in, and pick, one or two things that you want to focus on. It's I think that's, if there's a main obstacle for you, something that you don't like about yourself, a pattern of behavior that you don't like about yourself, that you wish you didn't have that. Have patience with yourself. I think it's important not to berate yourself when it's like you're at a diet and then you have a bad day and you go out and have a whole pizza. I mean, okay, you start again tomorrow. You don't beat yourself up over it, but you start again tomorrow. You pick it. Willpower is of great importance, and I think it's something we all struggle with to develop. But you can't reach the higher stages of meditation without willpower. And it's something I struggle with too. My dream is, weekly to have long meditation. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. But I like to set aside a day where I'm cutting off the external world and just focusing inwardly. And it's something that I'll be trying to do for my whole life, because it's not something that comes easily to me, given, all the demands of life. So patience, persistence, willpower, and intention, and calling upon guides to help you.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Dena. Beautiful answer. I'm getting a request from an audience, Dr. Let me get the name.
Jivander,
Dr. Jivander?
Yes.
Yes. Can
Welcome,
I please
sir,
welcome you?
welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Dena ma'am, pranam, pranam.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk, Dr. Jivander? Do you have any questions?
Please, can you see me, ma'am? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. This is in South Indian regional language called Kannada. So
Kannada.
yes,
Kannada.
you are in Canada. In Canada. Yes.
Wonderful.
We are very grateful to you, ma'am, for providing this wisdom. And we have added these two pics. And you are here always with us. Is here.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Ma'am, thank you so much for giving this wonderful wisdom on the planet Earth.
Thank you for that.
Ma'am, actually I asked Patriji, sir, it is very, very difficult to me to translate. Every day, just one page I could able to. So I wanted to take somebody's help to finish the book in the given time. Then Patriji told, no. Only you have to finish the book. And in every sentence, you just give that life what you are feeling. Actually, ma'am, minimum thousands time, I would have got goosebumps. In single page, 2-3 times, I used to feel goosebumps. And I used to stop reading. So this was happened with me. And Saryu Mother, Saryu Mata, River Saryu Mata. One day she connected with me. And she told me, the day you people, if you stop pesticides, vermicides, all these chemicals on the planet Earth, all the diseases will be vanished from the planet.
Yeah.
She told, and she has given a channel to me, and we have taken it. And ma'am, one more experience we got in our regional language. We used to conduct classes for this. We in entire India, in all the languages, we put single name Sitayana, like Ramayana, it is Sitayana.
Wonderful.
Yes, and one more experience I would like to share, ma'am. One master got one wisdom, one had an experience. In her experience, you just gave me a baby in my hand, and you are very much satisfied with that incident, and you merged in the planet Earth.
Ah, beautiful.
Really beautiful.
Beautiful,
I have
beautiful,
got
beautiful.
goosebumps, and many more things I got by this experience. Ma'am, really from here, I bow to you. I touch your feet from here. I'm touching Mother Earth. I'm touching Mother Earth here. I feel so. I'm touching your feet there also. Hats off to you, ma'am. I don't find particular words to express my gratitude, but this is my situation.
I'm deeply touched, and I think the reason why you needed to translate it is because of your attunement with Sita. My hope
Yes.
is that those who
Yes.
translate it are attuned with Mata,
Yes.
because her message is so important now. And you're right about the pesticides. And after writing that book, my whole relationship with everything changed. I'm much more observant of the animals and the plants, and of speaking to them, and of loving them, and of that was the way it used to be when I said I peered into the Treta Yuga. That's the way everyone lived in the Treta Yuga, but it was changing because the Treta Yuga was moving into a different age, and we have to regain that consciousness.
Yes, ma'am. And after this, we got one inner circle, and we are meditating for Mother Earth only. We are getting the messages. We are getting the messages from the Mother Earth, from the nature and spirits, and we're doing some works in particular way, ma'am, to protect water, to purify water by producing bioenzymes, and protecting bird kingdom by creating nests. We're doing some. We will call you, ma'am, one day in that moment. We invite you. We invite you in that moment.
I will come, and actually, I would like to promote that on our
oh my goodness.
Vasundhara Warriors. I would like to promote those messages.
Yes.
On and to our networks, because we have thousands of people who follow us. So yeah, I will try to do that.
Yes, and we are very much touched with the word Vasundhara Mata, from where Sita. Yes, and our group is Vasundhara Warriors group.
Yeah.
So beautiful. We are working on that. In our original language also, we invite you, ma'am. Please do come.
I will come. I want to say we have to have patience, because this is a long-term effort.
Sure,
beyond our lifetime. The transformation of the consciousness, the evolution of human consciousness, so that people come into loving relationship again with other human beings and with the earth. If you look out at what's going on in the world, you can say, oh my God, but we can't get discouraged. we have to keep doing what we do. I tell myself that every day.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you for sharing. That was very
and that day, ma'am, actually, I just requested you to blessings. Ma'am, please bless me to bring the energy, the whole energy, your energy in our Kannada book also. So you were very much pleased at that time. And now also I request you, ma'am, the whole energy through Rukmini, Mother, the whole energy, please bless us to bring it in our again regional language. The next book also.
I pray that Mata Sita and Mata Rukmini bless us all to continue her work.
And I would like to keep in touch, ma'am, because I wanted to share many more experiences regarding Sita and some other experiences also there. Yes. I will share with you. I'll
Share with me. I want to hear them all. And Pooja and Neetaji, maybe we have another session.
Why not? Why not? Yes.
This is as important to me as anything, you know, hearing people's experiences of Sitama. This is such inspiration to me. And so, and we need to join across the world around these messages. There's an urgency now.
That's so nice of you. That's so nice of you, ma'am. That's really nice of you, because there are multiple people from all over India. People are having profound experiences, and where they feel they get connected. Because see, Mother Sita, Ma Sita is the goddess whom everybody has prayed throughout their, you know, since their childhood. They can connect with that. And then secondly, how beautifully, like we all know that she was a daughter of Mother Earth. So, but the way you have portrayed how she can communicate with the nature, how she can communicate with the animals, she can communicate with the stars. That's such a wonderful insight with which each and every meditator can feel, yes, that's a kind of Sita, my goddess, yes, I can be like her.
Exactly.
Earlier, if we talk to youngsters, so if we ask if you want to be like Sita or do you want to marry Ram, so everybody is like, you know, denial. People are in a denial mode. We cannot sacrifice the way they sacrificed. We cannot live that tough life what they lived. But this new perception, this new picture, so everybody is loving it, where they can feel connected.
Yeah, beautiful.
Right? So they feel, yes, like for myself also, when I was doing it, when I was writing it, I used to feel, yeah, this is the real true picture of my goddess, whom I can be proud of, whom I can, you know, treat as my role model, whom I would like to be. If somebody will say, yes, I want to be my goddess Sita, because I feel connected with each and every line. I feel connected with Mother Nature. It is as if, so through you, we are so all the entire community, PSSM, we all are so much obliged to you for this wonderful gift, ma'am. Because people are loving the book.
I'm so grateful to Sitama, because I've done nothing but allow her to speak, be hands to write for her.
Part of it. So I told the story when I took the book to the governor of Orissa. I think I shared this experience with you. So he was touched. Like he said, the lady, he didn't know you. So he said she must have done a lot of research to write this book. So being a non-meditator, he was not able to understand that somebody can channel and time travel to that era and get the entire information and these stories in such depth. And he was really touched knowing that you have written about Shanta, about the sister of Lord Ram. That is something most of the people hardly anybody knows. Hardly anybody knows, yes. About Shanta, nobody knows. And even about those Rishikas, the wives of great sages, people are not aware. Most of the people are not aware of those stories. So that's so wonderful to have those kind of profound experiences. That's so lovely. In fact, that's amazing. That's amazing, I'll say. So we are so blessed that at this point of time, when Ayodhya Shri Ram Mandir is coming up, the energy of the earth is ascending, and we all, like maximum dhyanis all over the world, we all are connecting with the help of Zoom. See, otherwise it was like a dream talking to somebody in US and connecting so beautifully, like we can see you, we can talk to you, and the entire globe has become one. So this oneness is that's a mool mantra, I would say, that has connected the entire universe. And we are talking and we are connecting, and the energies are going higher and higher, where people are getting connected. So it's a beautiful work. It's an amazing work, universal work. And we are all instrumental. Yeah, and so so thankful to you for this wonderful gift again.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Kavita.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yes, thank you
Kavita
so
ji.
much.
Thank you, Dr. Jivander. I'm getting a message now. I think we should open the floor to the audience. So, Surbhi Batraji, would you like to talk to Dena now? Surbhi, are you there?
Yes, it was not allowing me to unmute myself. Pranam, ma'am. I'm Surbhi Batra from Virginia, USA. The book Untold Story of Sita is the first book in my life that I've connected on personal level, since my daughter's name is Sia. And I have read that book 10 times, and I have narrated that. And every time I read that book, I feel like I have a new connection with that book, and the bond is getting stronger. And I have narrated that book to my family members. And currently, I'm reading this book, narrating this book chapter by chapter. See, in Swadhyay series, a lot of people have done 2-hour whole book summary, but I'm going chapter by chapter, giving the details of each chapter to people. And so 3 major PSSM platforms are Australia, PSSM New Jersey, and Gudakesha Group. And in Gudakesha Group, people have started calling me Minakshi because I have a mole on my cheeks. And the way they get connected with the book. And Sheetal Pawar ma'am has really commented. Sheetal Pawar ma'am is one of the masters also. And she's the one who recommended me to Australia Group, that Surbhi does very good narration for this book. And people are saying that the way I read, they feel like they are sitting right there in that platform, like a movie stage, and like the show is going on. And my heartfelt gratitude to you for coming in my life through this book. And I am manifesting that I read this book at least 100 times before I leave this body. I hope with the blessings of you and all the great masters like Neeta ma'am, Mahi ma'am, and Sheetal ma'am, Patri sir, all these masters, I get that good wishes that I will be able to read this book 100 times. And I would like to say to you, if you're ever in Virginia, it will be my great honor to host you. Please. And I would say thank you to Neeta ma'am and Mahi ma'am for giving this opportunity to talk to you. I feel that this book has given me so much insight about how women can be so powerful. And all these sages, I knew their names, but what they had done, I did not know. And as as Soma had said in her part, that so Ansuya is known as the wife of so and so, not what Ansuya has done herself. So, right. And I have known through this book, through you, I should say, I have known what these women were capable of. So thank you for giving that insight to the world. And I just seek your good wishes that I can read this book to 100 platforms. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you, I love you, I love you. I really wish I can. And one more manifestation before I go, that I want to see you in person and touch your feet like I would. And I have never met Patri sir. I have only met Patri sir on Zoom, and I have connected with him, and sending a lot of love to you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I can come to Virginia. My son lives in Washington. Where are you in Virginia?
Fairfax, Virginia.
Is that far from Washington?
No. You tell me and I will come. I'm a state licensed run daycare provider. I will close my daycare if I have to come meet with you.
Okay, we'll arrange it within the next year.
I can send Neeta ma'am my phone number, or you can write my phone number, because my phone number is my business number. So I don't care if everybody has my number. Okay. It's 571.
Yes.
276.
Yes.
6721.
571-276-6721. Don't expect it immediately, but sometime within the next
year. Anytime in this lifetime, ma'am, I would be really, really blessed. I know in meditation, we don't call the word blessed, but I will be blessed to serve you. Serving you would be like serving Patri sir. Thank you. Love you, love you, love you.
Beautiful message, Surbhi ji, but please don't close your daycare. Please think about those mothers.
No, when I say close means like take a day off. No, these kids are my life. These kids give me so much energy. Like in Gudakesha class, we are told to put a mindfulness bell. So we learn how to smile, and eventually that bell will ring as a timer that you can set up for every 15 minutes. And so I was talking to another child who had hit a child, right? And so the bell dinged because I had trained my daycare kids, these 3-year-olds, that every time the bell dings, you have to smile because, you have to create those happy hormones. And so I'm talking to another child and the other child is tugging my shirt. Miss Survey, it's time to smile. Your bell ding. I'm like, hold on, this kid hit somebody else. I need to talk to that kid first. But no, you told us to smile first. So I had to stop what I was doing, trying to talk to the child and smile. The whole class smiled. And then I had to go back talking to the child for hitting his sibling. So no, these kids give me so much energy. Thank you everyone for being here on this platform. And thank you, Neeta ma'am, for creating this awesome platform. Thank you, Dena ma'am. Thank you for the opportunity for me to talk to you guys.
Thank you, Survi. Yes.
Neeta ji, would you like to open the floor to the audience now, or
Yes,
because we can keep asking questions otherwise? Yeah.
Yes, only 2 hands raised, no?
Yes, I think Manisha, would you like to talk to Dena now?
Yes, ma'am. First of all, gratitude from my inner heart, and where we have done the narration of the whole book Sitayan with our group, and each day whenever we did this book, each page, as the page by page we went, there were tears in the eyes. Such beautiful narration. The very first page, I said that is my that's a story which hit me on my heart. It took my heart off, and I wanted to thank you, especially for that celestial ceremony of Sita ji that you narrated so well. It was very nice. I really enjoyed that moment we had with Ramji and Sita, and how the very connection of Vasundhara Mom with us. It took a. It was a very great connecting with her, and since knowing about this, nowadays I am feeling that connections with her. Even a bird has started making her nest, the hummingbird, in my house near my in my veranda. So I am feeling so great, so blessed that those connections are coming, and even the universe is connecting. That I see certain numbers also. So after reading this book, only that we got those connections with the universe. Thank you, ma'am, for your so grateful narrations in this book. Thank you, ma'am. I don't know the way I am presenting it nicely or not. The very heart of mine is pouring with love, with compassion towards you for all that you have done to us. Thank you. It is my great honor to talk to you also. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Great honor.
Thank you for those beautiful words.
Thank you, Manisha ji. Ma'am, Neeta ma'am would like to speak to you and ask you a question. Please, ma'am.
Yes, Dena ji. Have you faced any obstruction similar to Ma Sita? Because Hindus are very rigid towards old scriptures, and everybody is not open-minded to believe in past life. So have you faced any obstructions?
Any restrictions? Not really. When my the first book came out, I have done a lot of interfaith work in the past, and a Christian theologian that I know emailed me and said, "I've just read your book. Please call me. I want to talk to you about it." And I was very nervous because friends had told me not to publish the book under my name because I have a profile in the interfaith world, and they said, "Not everybody's going to accept that." They said, "Use a pseudonym." I said, "How can I? This is my life. I can't use a pseudonym. I'm coming out of the closet. This is who I am." Mm-hmm. And either people will accept it or not. So I didn't respond to this friend of mine, this Christian theologian, but then he emailed me again. And he finally called me. We had a long talk. And he said, it was just groundbreaking for him. And he started researching on his own. I've never researched. I just describe my own experiences. I've never been into past life regression or read about other people's experiences, of which there have been many, many, many. But this man, who's a prominent figure in that world, began reading other books on reincarnation, and he said to me, the evidence is irrefutable now. He said, we have to accept this is irrefutable. And he told me about books he was reading, and he insisted I get them, and I looked at them. And yes, there are many, many stories of children who, remember their death and remember their past families and go to meet their past. I mean, there's so many stories like that of people in therapy who've had parent, phobias that they've been able to overcome through past life recall. And so I realized that it's among secular people and in the West in particular, because this has been repressed. In all the religions initially accepted this reality, but it was repressed because it doesn't serve the desired narrative of you got one shot, make it, sign up with us and you'll be saved. So then another Catholic priest called me about 6 months ago, a man that I'd worked with in the past. And he said similar things. He said, I was very, very, very moved. And of course, what part of one is the one that reincarnates? Well, I broached this subject in the beginning of my journey through time. There are things that you take and there are things that you don't take. And I'm not going to be Dena in my next incarnation. And I'm not Sonia now, or I'm not those personalities. And yet I have the memory of those personalities. I have the memory of those teachings. And I've become who I am today because of the compilation of everything that came before. And tomorrow I'll be the result of what I've learned in this life. Nothing is lost. And Krishna says that. No step is lost. That's a very important message, that no step is lost. We keep becoming, we're in the process of becoming until we awaken to who we truly are. So surprisingly, I have faced much less resistance. My friends who told me not to sign my name were out of step with the times. Things have changed here in the last 20 years. And I think it's important that people come out and talk about this openly. I just accept this as a fact that everybody understands. And so, when people ask me, I had a conversation the other day when someone said, so what's your work now? And I said, it's recovering memories from my past births. I write about them, I'm very open about it because I think if it becomes mainstream, the story about the 100th monkey, when the 100th monkey gains an ability, it spreads through the species. If more and more people regain their memories, it will become more common through the species. And this will help us get over our fear of death. There'll always be, it's an instinctive thing so that you don't kill yourself. It's an instinctive thing so that we maintain our bodies until the time comes to shed them. But I think knowing that it's not an end and that there's a continuation of consciousness is an important step for the human community to know that. So I think it's very important to speak about it until more and more people just accept this as a reality.
Thank you, ma'am. I have another question. Can I ask? Have you ever tried to unfold any of your past life during Buddha's life? Because the devotion of Yashodhara is not revealed yet.
I have not. I don't think I was in India at that time. I talk about in the Rukmini book, travels to different parts of the world. But in this current book on Tibet, my work, I have many Western Tibetan Buddhists who work with me. My assistant Merriam is one of them. My oldest grandson he knows that he was a Tibetan in his past birth. Talked to me about it since he was 3 or 4. So I know I've had a deep connection with Tibet. And that in this book that I'm just finishing, it goes to the root of the Tibetan-India connection, because the awakened ones, the masters, reincarnated back and forth before there were nation divisions. There was a lot of, between the Himalayas, Mount Kailash is central to spiritual energy for the Tibetans. So my connection with Buddhism is really through Tibet and through the one called Guru Rinpoche, who came from India to help them eradicate the troublesome spirits. So I know Buddha through that. So I've been deep in reflections about that, about my connection to Buddhism, but it is through Tibet. I don't believe I was in India at that time. And so like I say to myself, I can only tell stories that I have experienced. I can't tell stories that I haven't experienced.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
But, I've done a lot of in my interfaith work, a lot of dialogues between Hindu leaders and Buddhist leaders. And the Hindu leaders are always saying, there's really not much distinction in our worldview. And the Buddhists are always saying, oh, yes, there is. We're different. And I've never believed that. So in this current book, which deals with the life in Tibet around Buddhism, and then deals with the life in India, a successive life in India around Shaivism. And it shows the unity between Buddhism and Shaivism, really the whole Hindu worldview. And so I'm hoping this can eradicate those. I mean, there are different cultural differences, different ways of expression, but we all have to acknowledge the unity of truth.
Thank you, Dena. Yes, Pooja.
Any other hand raised at all? Anybody else would like to talk to Dena? Because I've got a list of questions. I can keep talking. All right, we'll keep going, Dena. When an audience hand will be raised, we'll probably take a pause. So people want to know about Rukmini and the turning of the time. What would you? It's a big book. It's a huge book. There's lots that you've told us about Rukmini and about Krishna and about Arjuna, and then about Satya as well. But then, what would you like to share something today with the audience? What is something that has touched you most when you wrote this book?
What I gained from, so many lessons teaching some Sita, but what we've been talking about is in the Treta Yuga, the connection with the natural world, right? And the integration and the love between all the various expressions of the divine. When Rukmini and Krishna come, it's a different era. We're approaching the Kali Yuga now, where the focus is on material development. That's sort of where history begins, the development of civilizations. We never talk about what was lost, only what was gained when you look at linear history. But in the Rukmini book, it's very clear that the time is different. And her work is really awakening compassion for the plight of other people. Social distinctions are becoming more rigid. Women are suddenly finding themselves in very unfortunate situations, which wasn't so prevalent during Sita's time. As we say that when you look at Rukmini has disappeared from history. The only thing we know is her being kidnapped to get married. She's disappeared from history. And my first question was, why? Okay, Sita's been assigned a secondary place, but Rukmini's disappeared. And in a way, it was because her work was controversial. She had full independence in what she was doing. She and Krishna were of one mind. He was doing one thing and she was doing something, manifesting as different, but in complete unity with him. And, she was really alleviating a lot of the troubles that women were facing, hoping to maybe lessen them as we moved more into a Kali Yuga mentality, where the patriarchal mind view really took complete control. And so that was her work, to try to awaken compassion. There are many, many stories in there about people of less fortunate situation, discarded by society, that she takes in and helps them find their place in the world. And so it's a love that's now expressed to the human community. That's the other side of the message. We can't only be giving our love to nature. We have to be finding a loving way to live among ourselves. And there's so much still today. And we have wars going on in our world with terrible torture and suffering going on. And we have to find a way to end that, in part because it will destroy us. I mean, just like the ecological destruction will destroy us, we have atomic weapons and they can destroy us. They can destroy life on Earth. And so we have no choice but to evolve. And the messages coming through for me, through Rukmini, was the need to tend to human suffering. And that was Krishna too. I mean, here he was in the middle of perhaps the first brutal war. You know, it was because it was in a way a world war. I mean, all of the whole Bharat area from Afghanistan all down to the south was involved in this. And so it was a war of a massive proportion with powerful mantric weapons that I believe Krishna withdrew. Some say they had the power of atomic weapons, that the energy could be so focused with the few minds of those who could do it. And of course, Arjuna, being a benevolent force, would use these wisely, but there were others who were not so benevolent who could use this for massive destruction. And so this was the first time such weapons were unleashed on this scale. And then what we've seen since that time is a continuation in that regard. And now we've sort of recaptured the power of those weapons. It was a sage I met in Rishikesh at one time who said to me that Krishna withdrew the powers of the mantric weapons. And that was one of the purposes of his being there on the battlefield. And it wasn't just to counsel Arjuna. It was to withdraw. There were many, many reasons for his presence there, but in part it was to make it impossible to use these weapons again. And Rukmini had a part in all that too. What was Rukmini doing? She wasn't just in the palace, just having a good time. You know, there's stories of Abhimanyu in the book, who Abhimanyu really was, you know, and he came, you know, and why he came down, and why he could only come down for 16 years. And it was to keep the line of the lunar dynasty intact, because it was about to be wiped out. And then what led to the events of the war was deception, betrayal, you know, people being kind of swept into the power of Duryodhana, which we exist today, powerful figures who are able to manipulate other people to support them. And so the things that took place then, we still have today in our world. And so it was, in my mind, a more contemporary book in many ways, because the time period was closer to ours. The consciousness was closer to ours. But I felt it was very important as we're struggling to evolve beyond that consciousness. And I think it's very important for us to begin to talk about, what does that evolution look like? What does the next stage in human development look like? What does the reestablishment of Dharma look like on a global scale? And that is what I hope will be the future of my writings, is where do we go in this evolutionary moment now? And so the Rukmini, I mean, like the Sita book, the Rukmini book was so dear to my heart. I just fully identified with everything. And there are wonderful women sages in there. I mean, because wherever Narayani takes birth, wherever Narayani takes birth, the women sages gather around her. It's like bees drawn to a honey, you know. I mean, they can't not. And so many of them take birth around Rukmini, and, you know, again, perform less visible roles. You know, in the traditional Mahabharat, we hear the stories of all the male heroes, but Draupadi is the only female we really, you know, relate to. But I don't deal with Draupadi so much, except in the fact that she had a relationship with Rukmini just as she did with Krishna. So I'm eager for the book to be out and for us to talk more about, because that is, the messages in there to me are very relevant, as the Sita book, very relevant for our time as we try to find new ways of living together as a human community that support one another and not compete. It's moving from a competitive to a collaborative model of human civilization.
Indeed.
We're far from
Indeed,
it still.
Yeah, definitely. So we're reaching towards the end of the session, Dena. I just wanted to ask you one more question, and that was, in your book, written, you have written about, that we're all one in a way, that you said Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. In other words, the whole earth is our family, especially when you called out that as thema you had ancestors in Africa. And when you went to Africa through GPIW's work, you're wondering, do you have your maybe great grandsons there or great grandchildren there? So when we think about this, that the whole earth is the family, and like we think about spirituality has been in all the countries. Like ancient China or Libai is something like you introduced us to them. Like I didn't have any idea about the ancient China and the richness. So I'm a bit biased just because I'm born as an Indian this lifetime. You've got a very strong connection with India as well. So you have already kind of firsthand witnessed the spiritual heritage, the spiritual richness of India. What are your thoughts about the future India in terms of spirituality? Where do you think things are going as in world and then for India?
Because I spent a lot of time in India and have, such deep karmic connections, I view myself as being much deeper than in the West, although my body is in the West now and I'm here. And, there have been many difficulties in being here, but I see that as my mission to be here now. I think India has a very important role in the future, but I don't know when that will happen because India still has a lot of recovery to undergo. I mean, I see, I pay a lot of attention. I read the newspapers in India. I have a lot of friends in India. And I see the scars still from India's history. I address that in the book I'm writing now because the second part of it takes place in India when a lot of destruction was taking place. And so, I can share share a healing experience that I've had. In the book, in my journey through time, I write about a life in Varanasi in the 17th century where there was communal turmoil. And I went with my husband to Kashmir for a period of time before coming back. 2 years ago, I had taken my son, his oldest child feels very connected to India, knows himself to be an old devotee of Shiva. He was 10 at that time. And so I took them to India, and my son wanted to see we were flying into Mumbai. He wanted to see the caves where the old paintings were. So I started researching where to take him. And it was at a place called Aurangzeb, right? Aurangabad. And so that name, I knew Aurangabad, the demon, I'm not, then I started, we didn't end up taking that trip. I took him out of places, but I said I would take you. But when I got back home, the memory awakened in me that what I had witnessed in Varanasi, it's not in the book, at that time was the destruction of the great Shiva temple by Aurangzeb. And having re-experienced that memory, such hatred for him arose in me. And I didn't know how to deal with it. It's like, what do I do? I'm hating a man from the past, and I don't want to walk around with this hatred. But I was set on going to his grave and spitting on his grave. I said that to my son. He looked at me in shock. He knew that I was a peacemaker. He said, "What? You're going to do what?" I said, "I have to vent my anger." And so I started researching how to do this, where the grave was, and I discovered it was an unmarked grave in a Sufi shrine. And I said, well, how can I go to a Sufi shrine and spit on his grave? And so I'm thinking of all that. And then I had a dream, a very healing dream, where I was wandering in the ruins of a temple. And some man came up to me and said, there's a sage sitting over there. Why don't you go meet him? I said, okay, yeah, I'd like to meet him. And then I walked into the place up through ruins, and there was this poor old Sufi sitting down with a few people around him. And he looked at me, and I looked at him, and I said, oh my God, that's Aurangzeb. And I awoke from the dream, and my anger was gone. It was just gone. And I was so grateful for that healing experience, because I really don't want to walk around with anger. And so I think a lot about, if I'm one person who carries these memories and carries this anger, how many more people are carrying the anger? In the book I'm just writing, as you know, if you read the Rukmini book, for the first time, I record my memory of taking birth as a male, who was one of the stone workers on the great Krishna temple in Mathura. Well, in the current book, it's the destruction of that temple and what that awakened in me. Of course, not having the memories that I was one of the builders, but the destruction of that temple. And then it's the destruction of Somnath. And so all of these things I've been holding in my soul. And so of course, I say, at the end of the book, you can't, how do we deal with this collective pain? You don't want to take it out on current Muslims, because they might have been Hindus who have been persecuted in the past. You don't know who those people were. And some of the current, virulent Hindus might have been Muslims who did the destruction. So you have to really step back and say, but what I do believe is that India needs to have an accounting of its history. In other words, why is the Taj Mahal the symbol of India? A Mongol mausoleum? Why not one of the great ancient temples? There's so much recovery that needs to. I was in an article the other day that I read of a young Indian wanting to recapture the history. He goes to Delhi and looks at all the conquerors' tombs and everything. That's not India's history. I mean, that's recent history, but it's a history of conquest. So I think before India can play the role it needs to play in the future, it has to go through a process. And because I don't live there, I'm not part of the society, I can't say what that process is. On an individual level, I'm going through my own process of healing a lot of in the Tibet book, I talk about a healing of Christianity, because I was present in Europe when the women were burned at the stake. And I record an event, in Tibet. I have these memories that come up of experiencing a woman, indigenous healer, who was burned at the stake. And so I had a lot of antagonism to Christianity because of that incident that was seared in my mind. And so on an individual level, I was able to, in the writing of this book, because my recording of memories is a healing process for me personally. So in the writing of that, I was able to see things very differently, which I'm not going to describe because I'll save it for the book. But it healed that. And I was able to, after taking birth in India as the Rajkumari, I was born to a Sufi sage in Persia. And that helped heal me. So we all need, when memories are stored, we may not be aware of the anger, but the pain, but it comes out in other ways. And I see this pain coming out in India. I see it coming out in India, in the polarization of the society. But the secularists are wrong not to embrace the spiritual history of India, the essence of Bharat. I wish India would change its name to Bharat. There's a lot more work that needs to be done in terms of realigning with the civilization that the rishis and Ram set in motion. That's what I want to see happen, realigning, accepting Ram as the father of the nation. I don't see Gandhi as the father of the nation. He was a great politician. I see Ram as the father of the nation. And Ram was for everyone. It was before, people who converted to Islam. Ram was their founder also. So how do we make that happen? How do we make that happen where we take the polarization out and the politicalization out and just try to awaken? Then India has the leading role for the world.
Thank you, Dena. Very insightful. I guess it's all the leaders need to become spiritual. Probably we can then take the essence of your message ahead. There is another audience who has raised her hand. Amritaji, would you like to unmute yourself and talk?
Hello, ma'am. Thank you so much. I'm just in awe. Just listening to you, I'm awestruck. Just don't want this session to stop. Just don't want this session to end, ma'am. you're just an amazing personality. Ma'am, what's your take on the world? This question has been raised in this chat also. How do you see the world? Do you see Satya coming back? Do you see there has been a very steady incline in spirituality? So, what do you see the world as?
You know, what I see the situation that we're in now as the breaking down of Kali Yuga structures and institutions. Institutions and structures that were set up in a lower consciousness are not working anymore. And yet we don't have the vision at the leadership level to help us give rise to new, more awakened institutions and structures. And so I think if you just look at the external, you see a lot of breakdown. And it's everywhere at all levels, polarization and breakdown. But what we don't see, which is not as visible, but which is more powerful, is the birthing. There is a birthing going on. There's one Buddhist leader, an elderly woman now called Joanna Macy, who said, and her words really made an impression on me when I heard them years ago, you can focus on the destruction or you can focus on the birthing. We each have to decide, you know, you can be focused on tearing down, which a lot of the anger from right and left, both extremes, is anger, you know, wanting tearing down, that kind of destructive anger. But if you stay in the light, there's a whole new framework, a blueprint that's coming into form now, which is based on more dharmic principles of sharing, of all the things we say, a more ecological civilization. There will be no choice. An ecological civilization will have to come into being. The only question is when. How much suffering do we have to see before it comes into being? Climate change is not something that's going to disappear next year. So there's going to, and I see the current war going on in Europe as maybe, you know, between all destruction, there are opportunities. I mean, it's a painful, painful thing. And I must say that I'm undergoing much suffering as a result of hearing those horror stories. But if it helps the world wean off of fossil fuels and move into renewable energy, that will be an outcome that is necessary. And so maybe it is time now for all nations to seriously take some steps to move to a more ecological civilization and to wean ourselves from these fossil fuels. You know, they say, the UN says it's too late to avoid. Climate change is here. It's not a future event. It's a present reality. But the question is degree, the degree of suffering, the degree of transformation. And so I think that, you know, in a way, it's nature prodding us. You know, you can't keep up this destructive way of living. There has to be greater consciousness of what your consumption means, you know, greater consciousness of the need to change. And so we talked earlier about changing individual patterns. It's much harder to change collective patterns. You know, we all know, you know, I'm a consumer, I buy things, you know. We have to work on that aspect of ourselves, of being part of this transformation to an ecological civilization that is also more considerate of people, you know, more economic. I mean, I don't like equality, maybe is the wrong word, maybe it's balance. What existed in Sita's time is balance. Things balanced each other. That was a Treta Yuga trait. What's a Kali Yuga trait is completely upsetting this balance. And even in the early stages of the Dwapara Yuga, we don't know yet, we don't even recognize how out of balance we are. And so it's trying to create balance in our own lives and then at the collective scale. So I'm very hopeful about the future. What we have to pass through until we get there, it's like you see a child learning to walk where they fall down many times. The mother can't go pick the child up every time. The child has to learn to pick itself up. We make our mistakes. And so what we have to learn along the way, I don't know. But I think it's incumbent on all of us in the spiritual community to begin to hold the vision of a dharmic future, of a future that's built on the foundation of love and compassion. That's our job now, to begin to put those imprints into the ethers. That's how we create the future. our own
Yes.
individual future we are creating. Collectively, we're creating the future. We're part of a
Yes.
collective. So putting those imprints of what a dharmic society would look like is very important.
Thank you so much. And we all see that happening. Someday it will happen. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Srishti would like to ask you a question. Srishti, please unmute.
Hello, Dena ma'am. Namaste. First of all, it's an honor to talk to you. I would like to express my gratitude to you for taking us on those beautiful journeys enriched with so much wisdom. It was an absolute delight to see Satyug through your eyes. In the book, When the Bright Moon Rises, I have all the books and they are my absolute favorite. I am yet to read this book. I was constantly scrolling through Amazon. I was waiting that when is she going to publish a new book? I was so excited. And as soon as I saw this book, I was like, I need to order this book right now. And the first page which I opened and read, and my heart just melted because it was to Satya who keeps opening my heart. So thank you again for introducing us to such a great master, such a sage Gayatri, which we get to know in the book When the Bright Moon Rises. Her many beautiful teachings on the higher and the lower manifestations of Indra, Suryadev, and River Saraswati, because I thought, I think most of the people in India think Indra as very notorious Dev, because we don't know how he is the representation of the luminous, higher luminous mind. I could feel oneness with Sundari in her stubbornness, in her willfulness. I was emotionally there when Shu says, Jing, should I settle for a man I don't love? You and I belong in that creative world. So my question to you is, can you please tell us more about Radha? Because we've known her to be a very sweet, young, beautiful maiden and Sri Krishna's spiritual partner. And what is the difference between the role of Rukmini and Radha, as they both are the incarnations of Mahalakshmi?
So there's a beautiful section in the Rukmini book of a meeting between Rukmini. There are actually two meetings between Rukmini and Radha. And the way I came to see it, I have friends who do a lot of kirtan, and I always go to the kirtans. Well, I used to go, I don't go anymore. And all the songs were Krishna and Radha, because that I did not connect deeply with the Krishna of Vrindavan. I knew from the beginning it was Krishna of Dwarka. The Krishna of Dwarka, where there's very little about, aside from the Gita, there's very little about his life in Dwarka. And yet I knew myself to be of Dwarka. And Radha plays a very important role as a Devi who comes to be the perfect devotee. She is the perfect devotee of Krishna. She is longing for her union with Krishna. And the love between them, between the guru and the devotee, is a beautiful, elevating, wonderful story. Rukmini has a more independent role as she's not the devotee. That's not her role. She's the Shakti of Krishna who's creating transformation in the world. She's not showing us how to sit at the feet of Krishna. She's showing us how to create transformation. She's a transformative power. Her work is in the world. She has her own devotees. And her devotees, as described in the book, love her the way Radha loved Krishna. I mean, it's a different. They love her the way that she's mata. She's mata to them, and so the roles are different, and yet there's a very powerful relationship between Radha accepts Rukmini as her mata, although Radha is older. And when she first sees Rukmini, she falls at her feet. And Rukmini says, no, you are the elder. I should be touching your feet. But Radha wouldn't have it because Radha sees her union with Krishna. And then there's a beautiful episode in there when Radha is longing for Krishna. And Rukmini says to Krishna, go to her. Why aren't you going to her? Go relieve her suffering. And he says, she must learn that I'm not apart from her. She must find me inside of her. But she can't. She's crying. Rukmini can't. She says, I'm going to, she stops eating. Rukmini, her eyes are crying all the time. She's one with Radha. I can't, you got to do something about this. I can't, I'll die if you don't stop. He says, go to her. So she appears to Rukmini. She appears to Radha. Rukmini does. And as soon as Radha sees her, she says, take me to my Lord. And she says, where is your Lord not? Where is he not? Look around. He's everywhere. And she opens Radha's eyes to Krishna, and Radha then sees Krishna everywhere. And so, as Krishna's Shakti, Rukmini is doing his, their work is done completely jointly. It's a very beautiful, like when we think of Parvati and Shiva, it's a very beautiful example of how these two energies are one and work in total harmony, but how they come together. Why did Rukmini take birth with Krishna? Not to be a Rani in a palace hidden away somewhere. I mean, that would be ridiculous to think that she was taking birth for that. She was taking birth to be part of it, to help with the transformation that was needed on the planet. And so their roles were different. Ultimately, it's all one, right? Ultimately, we're all part of the same, but as we come into manifestation, we assume different roles. Radha's role was the perfect devotee. Rukmini's role was Krishna Shakti.
Beautiful question, Srishti, and even more beautiful answer, Dena. But as Srishti called out, the first page of the book, to Satya, the book that you have dedicated to Satya, I must admit that Satya is stealing our hearts. Like if we think from Kapila, what the wisdom he imparted and the Satya, oh my God. The first chapter I'm going to reread again when I'm going to do the take 2 is that part where Usha meets Satya. It's very, very touching. So Dena, with this, although we don't want to, but I guess your day is just starting in America, and we have to part our ways. But before we do that, I would like to hand it over to Neetaji. Neetaji, would you like to take from me and talk to Dena?
Thank you, Dena ji. I'm very grateful to you. A whole Gyaan Bharat is very grateful to you. Thank you for being with us and enlightening us. Thank you, Dena. Thank you, ma'am.
I want to thank each and every one of you. I mean, you are my family. This love for Ram and Sita brings us together. And as well as our desire to continue working for the evolution, for the uplifting of consciousness. And so I do want to stay in contact with you, close contact. And to the extent that I can, I'll keep writing what I experience.
Thank you, Dena. We'll be in touch again. We'll organize another talk soon. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Lovely to have you. And I love your smile. Thank you so much.
Pranam to everyone.
Pranam. Namaste.
तो फ्रेंड्स, अब हम विदा लेते हैं। बहुत अच्छा सेशन था। इसका पूरा ट्रांसलेशन आपको संडे के दिन पूजा जी बताएंगी। बहुत टाइम हो गया है तो बस मीटिंग एंड करेंगे। बस कल का मैं आपको शेड्यूल याद दिला दूं कि कल हमारे साथ आशा गुप्ता जी जुड़ेंगी जो कंस्ट्रक्टिंग योर पिरामिड के बारे में बताएंगी। तो कल मिलते हैं फ्रेंड्स, सेम मीटिंग आईडी, सेम पासपोर्ट। तब तक बाय बाय, गुड नाइट, शब्बा खैर। और हाँ, जीवंदर सर, थैंक यू हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए।
थैंक यू सो मच फॉर अरेंजिंग सच अ
आपने भी ह्यूमैनिटी के लिए इतना कुछ किया कि कन्नड़ में इसका ट्रांसलेशन किया। मैं जब आपको देखी तो मैं बहुत खुश हो गई कि क्योंकि मैं आज थोड़ा बिजी थी तो मैं आपको पर्सनल इनवाइट करना मेरे से रह गया था।
बट एक मास्टर ने शेयर के याद कर रहा था, मैं 2 दिन पहले देखा था। लेकिन वसुंधरा वॉरियर ग्रुप के एक मास्टर ने शेयर किया आज है, तो आज कॉलेज से जल्दी आके फिर मीटिंग के सामने बैठ गया। और now I'm with you.
सॉरी सर, मैं भूल गई, पर
No,
नेक्स्ट वाली
no
मीटिंग में मैं
problem.
आपको पर्सनल
First of all,
इनवाइट
we are really grateful to you to arrange this meeting.
थैंक यू सर।
Thank you, Ilham. Thank you, masters. मिलेंगे जरूर, इसके बारे में चर्चा करने के लिए जरूर मिलेंगे, क्योंकि जितने भी मास्टर्स हैं सबसे रिक्वेस्ट है कि हमें इसे जीना है।
जी जी, बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, और आप तो कर
और
भी रहे हैं
वहाँ
काम के लिए।
उन्होंने बहुत कुछ कीज
हाँ,
रखा है टू ओपन द सीक्रेट। टी कोडिंग के लिए बहुत कुछ इस बुक में रखे हैं,
जी
और उसे हमें जीना है। एक बार इसी के लिए हम मीटिंग बुलाएंगे,
जरूर जरूर, मैं
इनकी चर्चा के लिए मीटिंग बुलाएंगे।
जरूर।
बहुत बढ़िया
तो
मीटिंग।
फ्रेंड्स, आज जो लोग देख रहे हैं और किन्हीं को अगर थोड़ा सा भी शक होता है कि इनको इतनी पास्ट लाइफ कैसे याद है, बाकी लोग तो इतना नहीं बताते हैं, तो मैं आप लोगों को बता दूं कि टॉर्कम सर्डियन ने कहा है कि उस इंसान को जिसके हेड के 7 सेंटर्स किंडल हो जाते हैं, प्रकाशित हो जाते हैं, वो आदमी अपने पास्ट लाइफ में जाके पूरा देख भी सकता है। मतलब वो उस समय उसकी कॉन्शियसनेस अवेयरनेस में बदल जाती है। तो जब मैंने उसको चैप्टर को पढ़ा था, तब मुझे अचानक दीना का, मैम का ध्यान आया कि वो इसीलिए शायद अपनी पास्ट लाइफ को इतने अच्छे से ऑब्जर्व करके अपने को दे दिया। हाँ, तो उनकी कॉन्शियसनेस अवेयरनेस बन चुकी है। अभी हम लोग कॉन्शियसनेस नहीं है, चलिए ट्राई करते हैं। तो चलिए जीवंदर सर,
एक्चुअली उनके प्रेजेंस में कुछ और मीटिंग करना है, और बहुत सारे मास्टर्स हैं जो एक्सपीरियंस शेयर करना चाहते हैं।
हाँ।
और मैं आपसे रिक्वेस्ट भी करता हूँ कि जो भी अपने अपने लैंग्वेज में शेयर करते हैं उनको ट्रांसलेट करके उनको इंग्लिश में बता दें, और उनका जो आंसर होता है उनको ट्रांसलेट करके इनको बता दें लाइव, ताकि इनको फील हो सके कि यस, मैंने भी देना मैम से बात की है। क्योंकि बहुत सारे लोग हैं उनको एक्सपीरियंस हुआ है सीता के साथ। एक्चुअली द लिव्ड।
हम सबको बोल रहे हैं कि लिंक शेयर कर दो। अभी मैं थोड़ी देर में इसके सबटाइटल्स भी ऐड कर दूंगी, तो सबटाइटल्स में और इजीली लोगों को समझ में आ जाता है।
व्हाट माय पॉइंट वाज मैम, एक्चुअली जो भी इंग्लिश नहीं जानते, अगर वो भी सवाल पूछते हैं तो हमारी जिम्मेदारी बनती है कि उनको इंग्लिश में पहुंचा दे उस सवाल को।
नहीं तो आज अभी हम लोगों ने मंगाए थे सब लोगों से क्वेश्चन, और नेक्स्ट सेशन
not today when they particularly share about Sita and experiences.
हाँ, जरूर
that okay,
आपसे बात करेंगे जरूर।
Thank you so much ma'am, again and again for arranging such a wonderful meeting, and for the team also. Thank you masters. Thank you.
बहुत अच्छी टीम है, जीवंदर सर, पूजा बहुत अच्छे से इनकी बुक्स को शेयर
बहुत दिन हो गए आपके टीम में आकर, एक बार आएंगे
बिल्कुल वेलकम। और पूजा, थैंक यू वेरी मच, बहुत प्यारा सेशन तुमने ऑर्गेनाइज किया, बहुत बहुत थैंक्स। और ये सिर्फ हमारे ज्ञान भारत के लिए नहीं, जो भी सीकर है उसके लिए है। तो थैंक यू पूजा, थैंक यू माही, थैंक यू ऑल मास्टर्स। कल मिलते हैं, तब तक बाय बाय, गुड नाइट, शब बखैर।
थैंक यू माही, थैंक यू नीता जी, थैंक यू ऑल, गुड नाइट।
थैंक यू पूजा, थैंक यू सो मच, लव यू all.
Love you,
बाय बाय।